for a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As far as I am aware, we have one public input card. Mr. Yoakum?
Good day.
Good day.
I have my Fiscal Rangers blogger hat on today. I just wanted to bring up that there's been a lot in the press about, especially colleges, and how they've come up with things that are politically correct. And I'm getting to your subject here, which is instructional materials, and how they are doing a lot of things to manipulate what the students are taught. And so my question is a general one here, because I know the staff's gone through a lot of work. You only have limited choices of what books you can choose from, because the state is the one that provides them. But my question would be, how would you ensure that the staff and the teachers don't get books and teach topics that are anti-Constitution, that are anti-American, that are anti-family, that are anti-freedom? And I would like to suggest that those sentiments should not be embedded into the materials, including off-site sources used by the teachers. Because I've personally tracked down where they've used third-party websites and other things that have very aggravating, questionable topics that they're giving to kids. And so I would really think that you need a statement of policy, and I'm going to provide you with more information. But topics like that, like student bullying or carrying a gun, are prohibited. That you don't allow these biased anti-family type of situations come into these classes. And I'll provide you direct sources for a lot of this information, including research papers and others. Because a lot of parents don't have the time. They would agree with me. A lot of people I meet that do agree, they just, as you know, a lot of them, they don't come, even if they're parents, they don't go to the schools and provide input, but then once they see it, they will get angry. And so I'm helping you try to save getting angry people calling you. And so the other thing is how to deal with the limited choice of materials that may contain the things that a lot of people I know would consider to be biased and inflammatory. And I've gone through that before, even in the previous administration, but I would love if you can come up with some answer to that, because there's some very inflammatory things that are in some of these books, and there's been studies by national groups reviewing specific books. So with that, I look forward to the presentation. I would like to say that I'd commend the staff for putting together that PDF. That was very illuminating with the charts and the information in there, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yoakum. All right, Mrs. Cockcroft and Dr. Faith.
Thank you, Vice Chairman Luke, board members, Superintendent Cornegie. Thank you so much for allowing us to come discuss the English Language Arts K-12 adoption with you. I'm thankful to have Dr. Faith Harris with me as the Instructional Materials Manager presenting, but I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the room full of people that have been involved in this process along the way. Megan Randolph, Sherry Smith, and Beth Petty led the K-5 team, and Seth Edwards, Nasa Olivares Torres, and Natalie Heitman led the 612 team. In addition, the regional curriculum specialists have supported the process in their regions as we've gone through this. We seem to have a display problem. Is it on the?
Try sharing it again and see
I apologize. Is it working now? All right. When we began the process, we kept in focus the vision and mission of Lake County Schools, and how the adoption process and the instructional materials can help support our vision and mission. We began by determining what student experiences should be in order to have individual opportunities to excel and graduate with the literacy skills needed to succeed in post-secondary education and the workplace. Our district instructional framework, as it supports our mission and vision, was also a focus, and we searched for materials that allowed our students to read, write, think, and talk daily, as well as have access to grade-appropriate assignments, strong instruction, deep engagement, and high expectations. Last year, when we finished our instructional materials presentation, we told you we had been invited to be part of a cadre of districts included with the Impact Florida network. We have during this time had the opportunity to work with other districts. They provided us learning opportunities around high quality curriculum, the needs of teachers and students with instructional materials. We were also paired with curriculum experts, support through TNTP, the New Teacher Project, and the collaboration with other districts as we work to make sure our process was in line. The topics studied include the best standards, curriculum research, and engaging stakeholders in the adoption process. So we had some committee members. First, we start with a district committee who reviews the materials through the lens of their specialty and remove any of the materials who did not seem to meet the highest levels of alignment. Then we had members from every school. They applied to be a part of the selection committee this year, and that process allowed us the opportunity to have a wide variety of experiences. They ranged in early career teachers to veteran teachers, and a couple of literacy coaches. This allowed us to consider the needs of our beginning teachers as well as our experienced teachers and what they needed. These are the secondary committee members who also applied. They participated in professional learning opportunities. They came together 4 evenings over the course of several months before they even reviewed any materials. They spent time in between each session doing independent learning. They learned about the best standards, research on quality curriculum, and the components of the rubric they would be using to evaluate the materials before they ever started evaluating it. Then they had independent time to preview the materials and finally came together for a full day, which included presentations by the publishers. They took the information that was given to them and they presented back with their staffs to continue the engagement process deeply with all of our teachers. I'm extremely proud of these committee members during every year, but especially this year with everything going on, and their commitment to the process in selecting high quality materials, as well as maintaining the integrity in the process with deep evaluation of these materials. In addition, we had a separate advanced placement committee member team. They had opportunities to meet both virtually and in person. It was very important to us to engage teachers in this process early on, so we started with 2 surveys before we even knew what books were going to be on the list. The first survey was around their perception on their current materials, and then the second survey was around what they wanted in their new materials. We used this information to guide us through the selection process. This is a national statistic, but we found from our teachers that they also were spending much of their time supplementing their materials. 71% of our kindergarten through 5th grade teachers indicated that they modified or supplemented their materials every time they used them. 75% indicated they spent anywhere from 1 to 3 hours a week making these modifications. 93% of our 6th through 12th grade teachers responding using the collections also indicated they make daily modifications in their materials. As we looked to what they were supplementing with, 75% of the teachers said they use Teachers Pay Teachers to supplement their current curriculum. One of our goals was to work to find a complete curriculum that would not require teachers to feel like they had to supplement or make great changes in order to meet the needs of their students. Not only were we concerned about the time teachers were spending, but also the inequalities from classroom to classroom across our district, depending upon what their teachers selected. Overall, the teachers stated that they wanted ample volume of text types with corresponding questions and tasks that are text specific, text sets to build knowledge and vocabulary around the variety of topics connected to science, social studies, and the arts, texts and materials that are reflective of the students and families in their community, writing and grammar to be embedded in the lesson, and decodable text connected to the foundational skills. All of this aligns to the district instructional framework that we've been building for the last 3 years. So it was good to see that that's how the teachers also responded. They then started with instructional materials evaluation tools. So in your folders, you'll see there are 3 different tools. There's a tool for the K-5 that includes the foundation pieces, as well as a 612 rubric and an AP rubric. This was developed also to drive for what the teachers wanted in the materials, as well as this alignment to the framework and the best standards. You can see that it's built on 5 criterion: building knowledge through high quality text, evidence-based questions, tasks and assignments, supports for all students, assessments, and teacher usability. If you'll look at the specific criteria, you'll notice that the alignments and descriptions as the teachers also stated they wanted, as well as some of the research-based indicators for each of the criterion. So, elementary. Our teacher committee had the opportunity to review these 3 materials. After the review, you can see these are the results from them based on the rubric that we just looked at. When they finished their review, they decided that they only wanted to move the top 2 resources, which were Great Minds and Amplify, to the teacher level for further review. They felt like the time would be better spent after consensus on those 2 materials. So the teachers reviewed those, and the final result came in that 14 of the 21 schools selected Great Minds, or might also have heard it called Wit and Wisdom. These are some of the comments from the school level pieces. We also were excited. This was the top rated material from our teacher district committee as well. So here, I'll give you a minute to look at the screen and read some of the teacher comments that were stated for that from the teacher committee. And then I'll provide some overall highlights from the elementary material. While the materials come with 4 modules, all of the standards are taught at least once in the first 3 modules, and most are taught multiple times as the standards are stacked according to the best standards requirements. The best standards call for integration of knowledge through art, music, and history, which is integrated. We also, as a district, have focused on integrating science, and that is in there as well. Every day, students will read, write, think, and talk about the text they have in hand, and they have the opportunity for both informational and literary texts. Foundational skills through Foundations is complete with multisensory integration and is applied through context and geodes, which also provides a diverse text and connection to the core module. Routines and protocols that support the district instructional framework are developed through every lesson beginning in kindergarten and includes meaningful writing connections. The students examine the text in conjunction with 4 question types and have the opportunity to reflect daily. Absolutely.
I actually looked this one up, partly because it's at home right now and my misunderstanding with this, and I couldn't understand it from online, was with the trade books, there's both trade books, which teachers are excited about, it says, and there are, I know that there are guided readers. So how do the guided readers fit in with the trade books? So like, are the trade books for older kids? Are the guided readers for like first K1, or like if they have trade books, how do you teach the same concept if everyone's concept is different? So that's like, how do you
There's
teach phonics with a trade book? I guess is my question.
There's different foundations. It's
Uh-huh.
called fundations.
Foundations.
They're foundations kits, and we have some samples up here as well. That's a separate. So the foundations is a kit that you teach phonics in itself. And
Oh, okay.
then there's a connection, and then there's guided readers that go along with that, the geodes. And then there's a connection to the core texts, which are the authentic texts, the literature books.
And those are the ones the kids select.
The kids, every student would have one of those, and they would have a lesson around that. And then there's other pieces of text in their student workbooks as well, in their student books as well.
So when it says
Poems and
trade books, do they mean library books where every child has a different book?
every child would have the same core text.
Oh, okay.
Which is a trade book,
Oh, okay. I've
which
got you.
is typical what you would see in a library, yes.
Yes,
An
okay.
authentic book.
Okay.
Every student would have the same book as they're having access to that grade level text in
Okay.
core
That was
instruction.
my misunderstanding. That makes sense. At Spring Creek, they actually do it where every kid has a library book, and that was what I didn't understand.
That would be your, like, when students will still have opportunities during their reading block to have selection and be able to select their own text, and they would have their own, but as far as their core instruction, they would have the same book.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. So moving on to middle school then, we followed the same process with middle school. The teacher committee there had these 3 publishers to review. And these, they reviewed them by grade level and rated them out by grade level. So you can see since there's 3 under each area, that's for 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade for each one of those. They decided to pass forth the first of the 2 that they felt were the strongest, with Amplify and PCG, to the teacher results. And the teachers voted. 9 of the schools picked Amplify. And this was also the strongest material selected by our district teacher committee as well. So here are some of the teacher comments there. I'll give you a second to read those, and then I'll give you overall strengths of this material. Some of the highlights from this are that it's fully blended print and digital instruction, specifically designed to meet the needs of middle school students. It's interactive with diverse, culturally relevant, relatable, and inclusive texts, and it centers around that middle school voice and ideas. The instruction and assessments are aligned to the best standards to build knowledge. It connects to our district instructional framework through authentic literacy. It includes constructed writing responses and practice with the types of questions that students may encounter on FSA. And it's differentiated and scaffolded with support that allows access for all of our learners to rigorous grade level content. This ensures student work with appropriate levels of challenging and while being supported in grade level texts. Then we have the high school. The high school committee reviewed these 3 materials. And same with their ratings. You can see it by grade level. They also rated each one of them by grade level. They worked very hard and even stayed an extra hour debating whether they should only send on 2 or send on all 3. And in the end, they felt very strongly. Each one of them felt like one of these materials was their top, at least one of them, if not 2. So they were so divided in that they ended up sending all 3 to the top, to the teachers for their vote. But you can see that the teacher vote was pretty strongly towards Study Sync, which was also the committee's top rating in the end. So I'll give you a minute to read the teacher committee comments there, and I'll then give you some of the highlights on this material. In addition to these teacher comments, we feel the materials are student-centered, standards-driven through a blended digital and print instructional model. The curriculum is designed with diverse, culturally relevant, and relatable and inclusive texts from a variety of genres. The digital platform is also available offline and is synced to Google Classroom. Study Sync Scope and Sequence was developed using the principles of backwards design. It includes the progression of standards across the grade, vertical alignment across grades 9 through 12, and summative assessments that assess the knowledge of standards at each grade level. Instruction and assessments are aligned to the best standards to build knowledge. It connects to our district instructional framework through authentic literacy. Its integrated and designed scaffold supports the accelerations for ELL students and those who are approaching and beyond grade level learners. All students have the same opportunity to access the curriculum regardless of their native language, proficiency level, or physical, social, or emotional ability. The diagnostic assessment can automatically apply scaffolds to students and can be modified in response to student learning at any time. And the final material comes from our advanced placement. This is done a little differently because with AP, we use College Board's recommended list as our source for the district review. Then they contact the vendors for samples and the teachers review those samples. Remember, our teachers have AP training as part of their AP teacher requirements to become the AP teachers, so they already had some of that training. They also had a digital vendor showcase where vendors demonstrated the materials to the teachers. And they asked teachers if there were any other materials they wanted to be considered as part of the adoption, as there is flexibility with these because it is a college course. They aligned to the AP College Board rubric and used the not aligned, somewhat aligned, and aligned status for theirs. For AP English Language, they reviewed these 4 materials. Here are the results of the voting. And finally, the selection was the BFW publishers. And you can see some of the teacher comments there as well. Then we have AP English Lit. They reviewed these 3 materials. Same process, asked the teachers if they had anything else that they wanted them to review. The results of the voting. And then finally, they selected this BFW, again, Bedford, Freeman, and Worth English Literature. And you can see some of the teacher comments there as well. And then we go to the money portion of this. This is a huge investment that we make as a district. We are still working through all the components of the contract negotiations and the budgets with the publishers, as they have not been approved by you as the board as of yet, but we've started those initial conversations. And then also, what would that professional development look like? Because we know that no matter how much heart and soul we put into the selection of these materials, if we don't provide professional development on the implementation of them, then it's going to be money wasted, and we want to make sure that we provide a systematic approach to that professional development as well. So here you can see the cost of the materials as an early on estimate. Some carryover as last year's instructional materials. We don't usually have carryover, but it was a smaller adoption because of world languages and CTE. College and career is going to pay for the AP, so that removes that piece. And so that leaves us with an approximate final cost of a little over $6.4 million. Last year's allocation from the state was about 3.5. We will be working through all of the different funding sources that we'll need in order to purchase the materials when we get the final bids on those. And we're very fortunate to have CARES funding, where we know that they want to make sure we have the great resources to make sure our students get back on track. And we have reading allocation dollars we'll be using for that as well. I'll be working with Mr. Ward and Dr. Feltner on those pieces. So from here, we have the hearing, school board hearing. I don't know if Natalie has talked to you guys about it or not. We were hoping to have it April 12th. before the board meeting at 5:30 as well. That has to be advertised so that it's open. The materials were open for public review. It wasn't advertised yet though. So they've been open since before spring break for public review, but it hasn't been advertised and promoted. That'll start tomorrow if we agree on April 12th as the hearing. And then we have to have a final board meeting at a different time where the materials will be approved, and we would ask for that to be done at the April 26th meeting. They're online is the best way for the public to view, and we also have them at the LRC, so people could certainly make appointments with us, because it is sometimes hard to navigate the online platforms, and we've done that before, where we bring people in, open up room A, and have them out for them to be able to review them. We have some here for you all to see if you're interested.
And I appreciate the show and tell. It's very difficult sometimes to figure out, looking online, what you actually get. 'Cause when you look at the elementary portion, they just have a bunch of handouts, and that's completely useless for anybody trying to review this, that you really need to see the books and materials. Although, when I tried to click on the middle school and high school, neither of those links work. They link back to somebody's desktop, their C drive.
Thank you.
So,
We'll check that.
yeah, I don't think you can access that from outside.
We checked though, so I'm wondering if I don't know.
I was
We
clicking
will
the
make
link.
sure that it works.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions that you all have for me, concerns, wonderings, or any of my team members?
I have some wonderings.
Okay.
And some of these are inspired, I think, from all those comments you sent us. I appreciate that. You know, I know when the teachers take the time to go through these, it's really nice to be able to see and hear their feedback, because they brought up, you know, many different angles on all of these resources. So I guess I've got some elementary questions to start. One of those pieces, the questions is about assessments. I think a number of these comments addressed this, that people were concerned that there aren't any cold reads. And so then that instantly made me think, are teachers now going to be like, oh no, I don't have any cold reads, so they're gonna go supplement, which is, I think, exactly what we were trying to avoid them doing. So, you know, Ms. Smith pulls in these cold reads off this website, Ms. Jones goes to this other website and gets these cold reads. What's happening with that? What do we envision?
We had the opportunity to see an assessment package that wasn't ready for the state of Florida yet. So we saw their national. They are working on an assessment package that would align with the Florida standards. And then our vision would be no material is going to be perfect. So anything that does have a gap of that nature, we would as a district provide those opportunities for them to, again, keep the teachers from doing the individual work on that.
And do we anticipate we'll be able to have that in place, or that they'll have that Florida edition ready for the fall?
We don't want the Florida edition ready for the fall. We want the Florida edition ready for a year from the fall, because we're K2 next year's standards. We want to continue assessing on the current Florida standards, because they'll be taking FSA at the end of next year aligned to those. So we really want to work with them through that year to make sure they have the assessments in place.
So for next year, I guess going back to this cold read piece, because I think teachers are gonna feel like this piece is missing.
I don't think it is. Is it missing?
No?
No, I think it's there. I think
It's
the
there?
access to that, I think it was an access problem for them understanding what was there.
Okay. Because a lot of teachers, well, I say a lot, but a few teachers mentioned this one specifically in their comments, that there were no cold reads available. And so that's just instantly thinking in my mind that they're gonna go elsewhere to find all these cold reads, because
Megan,
they're doing them now.
you come address.
Good evening. They have what's called new read assessments, so I think partially, am I allowed to take this? I think partially, it's learning through, when we have the professional learning married with the new material. I think sometimes it's also the semantics. They're called new read assessments. There's 2 to 3 per module. So, traditionally in a basal, teachers are accustomed to what's known as like a weekly, a Friday cold read. And where the new material, because of the vision of marrying reading and writing, they have the new read assessments, but they also have daily reading and writing connections, and then end of module, like a full writing culmination. So when you think of FSA writing, how kids would read multiple sources and then write, they have that assessment as well. But I think some of the misunderstanding could be, this
The
is
title.
not a basal, so those Friday assessments, every Friday you've read about the duck all week and you test on the duck. That's not what the premise of this is.
Well,
It's-
right, and
so-
I don't think that's a cold read. And
A new read assessment would be the cold read. It's
The new
that's
read assessment
semantics.
is the cold read. So those exist in here. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And teachers saw those? I guess I'm just so confused. Like, it was more than one teacher who said these don't exist. So I'm not sure.
So they have like part A, part B, questions that go along with specific pieces of the text. I think where some of the confusion could be coming from is some of it is if you're reading Hatchet, they'll take a section of a chapter and kids have to read that piece independently and answer questions that look very much similar to FSA. But there's 2 to 3 of them per module as opposed to like
One a
that
week.
weekly.
Big as a module, or how long does it take to get through a module, I guess?
It ranges,
A month, or,
No, there's 4 modules over the course of the year.
oh,
with
so
multiple
roughly
pieces of
9
text in
weeks.
it. Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay. So this would have significantly less cold reads, though.
Right, and so that's where I think the teachers are gonna be jumping to supplement, going, wait a second here, why am I only giving a cold read every few weeks? When,
Well, I think we
But
wanna
how
look at
many
the,
realistically would you want to get?
yeah, I think we
I
wanna look
hate
at the
cold
authentic
reads.
literacy block and how the use of the materials and the connected reading and writing and the opportunities for them to authentically respond versus a weekly cold read. Like, I don't know that we need, especially if they still have their opportunities for a choice book and reading and conferring at the same time. I don't think that we'll necessarily still need a weekly cold read.
and I think that's where when you talk about professional development, where this is gonna just be so critical, because there's a lot of minds you gotta change. You know, that's, I think in the comments as well, people were praising the amount of authentic literacy, but also feeling nervous about the huge shift that we're looking at here, that this is gonna change a lot of things that they're used to. And
We
so
have, I think the work that we've done around the authentic literacy in our district and the district instructional framework has built for that, but the materials, we have to admit, the Wonders materials have been lacking for years. And we also, as part of our goal, looked for where do we want to be in 5 to 7 years, not where we are now. And these, I feel strongly that these materials will help us get there. Will we have some hiccups along the way in the implementation and some support we have to give? Absolutely. But we can't continue to do things the way we're doing them now and expect to get different results for our students.
Yeah, I guess the one thing worth considering is that, and I have a great appreciation for the authentic literacy on this, is that when we talk about elementary ELA, we're practically in the upper quartile of the state, so we're not too far off from what we're doing. I think when we get to middle school and high school, that's where we drop off a bit. But I guess I'm just nervous thinking about, how many people are gonna try to do their own thing because they're gonna see something missing from this, or
I think that's where the instructional leader component at the school and even in the regional support needs to come in. And so, like, talking to you across the table from 8, 9 years ago when math standards began to change, we felt this same, like, oh my gosh, look at how this looks so different, but we knew what was best for kids. And so how do you continue the just-in-case support versus the, like, just-in-time, let's come in, let's have these conversations about what our instruction should look like. And I mean, having lived through it now, I feel like the best approach is to get down and dirty and do it. And so I'm less inclined to provide a resource so that you can be comfortable with what you've been doing and the results we've been getting, and let's do the work. And I think the instructional leaders in the building are gonna have a big load, and so are our regional supports, but that they're in place to make an adjustment.
No, I don't disagree with any of that. I just think it's going to be. I'm echoing this comment that this teacher made about it being such a big shift, and I just want us to be prepared for being able
Right.
to equip
We
them with
like
that
big
success.
shifts. We learn more when we feel uncomfortable. We make changes when we feel uncomfortable,
But-
so it'll
But
be
I also know
uncomfortable.
when people feel uncomfortable,
It'll be uncomfortable.
They revert back to, oh, well, I'm just going to go to teachers, pay teachers, and print out a bunch
And
of
they
cold reads,
will,
you know?
and I think that's where I was saying the instructional leader conversation is so important. So if I'm in my building and I see that happening and my grade levels are turning in these assignments, then I'm gonna have that conversation, like, okay, what do we need here? What's happening? What are we using as grades? I mean, I am just thrilled beyond belief at the opportunities that are existing for kids versus what's not there that's there now.
Yeah, I think as I was perusing these materials, I was excited about the phonics piece. I think that's one thing that has always been weak in the basals that we've done. There's a whole case of it there for phonics. I was like, okay, phonics is great. Where's the literacy stuff? Oh wait, there's more there. So I think that's good. And then the other big criticism I've had for a number of years is the writing has always been weak in whatever text we've picked, and that seems to be one of the praises that teachers are mentioning here in the comments is about the writing. And there's no question the assessment's gonna be honing in on the writing, but I'm just worried that is the pendulum gonna swing too far where now we focused on this writing and now the kid has to read 3 paragraphs that they've never seen for the first time and can't answer 4 questions about it, that are multiple choice.
There are multiple choice assessments as well, and then remember we'll still have iReady. I know, but it's a consistency. It's something that I know.
So like my twins, my mom's been teaching my twins reading this year, and they're literally just now switching over to this cold, essentially like cold reads, but it's science that they're reading, and then they're following they're doing the solar system this week, and then they're answering some questions. So they read a passage and they answer questions, which is technically a cold read, but at least it's relevant. Whereas when my son was in 3rd grade, it was like one cold read about the Native Americans, and then a cold read about popcorn, and then a cold read about candy, and nothing, and it would be, next day, and nothing correlated, and so there was really not any learning except for like learning the skill of pulling information into a bubble. And so that's where I felt like cold reads are a low level skill, and they're like a teaching to the test skill, whereas my kids have been writing all year, and now they're learning how to pull information and from a text that they read and answer the questions. But that should be a secondary skill, almost like I think like an easier skill. The harder work skill. Am I wrong, Stephanie? Is this the right logic? Because I'm trying to make it so that normal people like me can understand. Like what you're talking about with this is a much harder, more in-depth thinking skill, right? Versus the cold read, which is in theory, it's an easier skill. Okay. So I get the concern for sure, though. I understand, like, if we don't teach teachers
That's right.
to do the harder, in-depth work, then they're gonna lean towards the
left over.
That's right. That's
the
right.
teaching to the test.
Teachers is going to be critical on this. I have a question about the timeline. Because and maybe I'm reading the statute wrong, but I think the statute says that we're supposed to notify the Department of Ed by April 1st about which resource we're picking. Help me understand that.
Yes, the state has not finalized their list as of yet, and it will not have it done before April 1st either.
Okay.
So we did contact Dr. Faith contacted our representative for instructional materials through the state and gave them our timeline, and they said we can tell them where we are in the process. So we do the caveat.
Okay.
Here's the materials, not yet board approved. Here's the dates that we are able. So we're still meeting that statute requirement.
So the legislature and the Department of Ed, I guess, never talked.
They know, and yeah.
There's a surprise.
They
I was gonna
originally
say.
told us the materials they would have their list done by April. It does not look like they will have theirs complete by April at this point.
In middle school, if I could ask one of those questions, it mentions about 700 books accessible in the library. Are these
Virtual.
These are virtual pieces. The kids pick and choose or is the teacher assigning them? Does this take the place of the trade books essentially at middle school? That hey, we're gonna go read the story. Everybody pull this one up.
No.
Or is this I've got free time. I'm gonna read. It's like going to the library, except now it's just here.
Additional choice books for
Okay.
students. Mm-hmm.
Which sounds like a pretty good selection there of things for kids to.
And
continue
many
to
of
use.
them on the civics reading list, that is part of the best standards as well.
I think on the flip side, in 5th grade, a couple of comments, more than one mentioned it, that they were concerned about only 5 trade books for 5th grade. Thinking, now I guess if we're used to the basal of a story a week, right, then you're essentially reading 30 stories. Now they're going to read 5.
There's other text that's incorporated with it, so there's also like different genres that relate to that. So they would have that trade book, and then they would have other pieces that work in through the way, almost in a sense like a DBQ where you have multiple pieces that are working at the same time. They would have that as well.
All right.
And then we are not discontinuing our opportunity for students to have select their choice books as well. That'll be part of our continued part of our instructional focus.
At the elementary level, one of the criticisms was the lack of an online option. Is that true?
There-
So like if we go into pandemic part 2, is everybody back on Edgenuity, or is there a way to continue at home, or?
I will say that the technology components that align with Wit and Wisdom were not as strong as they were in some of the middle and high school selections, like Amplify or Study Sync were. However, we do feel like we would still be able to utilize it much in the same way that we did some of our PDFs and things that we had for this shutdown. We would still be able to do that. They would have the access to the text. Through Google Classroom.
I know I've been asking a lot of the questions. If you all have questions, I want to give you a chance to jump in.
Great. Well, I mean, he's paused, but I did want to say, like, I really appreciate that you guys did both the teacher voting and also the district voting, and then, like, let us know that you happen to match. I think that that's great. Like, I think that the teachers had real say, and it's good to hear that there was a sync up.
Thank you.
Oh, that's all. Look, I think they're all answered. I think the big benefit was just being able to see the materials because, you know, like I said, online you just can't make heads or tails as to what you actually get.
And the teachers did have physical
Right.
copies.
I could tell that based on their comments, I think they knew what they were talking about versus, you know, if they were just looking at the handouts, they wouldn't have had a clue. So I guess I just wonder about how much participation quality participation we'll get from any of the members of the public who decide to go and review these materials, because online you're just not gonna have any idea, you know, because you just see handouts. Or the other thing they put up there is a whole journal of blank handwriting lines. Okay, that was worth reviewing. Thank you for putting that one online for me to look at.
We certainly,
Noticed
I think
that.
we already do have on there, but we certainly can have a statement about contacting Dr. Faith so
Yeah,
that they
Cambridge,
can come visit the materials in person. We'd be happy to do
Cambridge,
that. And if they want, you know, if they're a member of the SAC or something at the school, they certainly could go to the school level and
Right.
do it as well.
Okay, that's helpful, I think. And then you all think you'll get the materials in time to blueprint and PDUA, because it looks like you all have a lot of work cut out for yourselves, and I'm in awe of your ambition
Yeah.
to undertake
We-
this kind of shift, so, I know the earlier they can be in your hands, the better, right?
Well,
Any
we-
chance of advanced copies to?
We have, like,
Okay.
enough that we can get started on scope and sequence and working with
Okay.
them, and actually, in this module format, some of that work is a little easier, cause it's laid out already, in a curriculum, developed way, now, so the blueprints may look a little different, because we won't have all of the optional resources, it will all be materials through this. And especially in the beginning, and then as we go in and we find, like I said, every material is not perfect, we would hear back from teachers and continuously be surveying them to find out what they felt like they needed added on there so that we could provide that as a district. I agree, that team back there, they've hit the ground running, they've started, even teaching some lessons in some of the classrooms to see what some of the weaknesses and strengths might be, so it's really exciting work for them.
Are we gonna take any sort of official opinion or stance? I know a lot of schools over the years have bought their own phonics programs, whether it's NIC or something else.
We will be
So-
using the adopted phonics, and the teachers wanted that as well, to be able to have that, because they brought up, if a student moves from school A to school B and they have different phonics programs, they have to start over with that, so we will be using that. And then, most schools have SIPs that they could intervene with, so.
So will SIPs move to an intervention piece as opposed, and the core phonics will be taught with this? And then, obviously I haven't had a chance to look at these, so then are these phonics, when you do the module, does the phonics match up to the books you're reading?
There are some geodes that we would be purchasing that help make that connection between the two.
Okay, cause that's really nice when that happens if you're reading with little kids.
You have to apply that phonics into the text they're reading in order for it to be meaningful.
Yeah.
And we're able to purchase all the materials that we put in front of the teachers.
Yes.
Right? That's fantastic. I remember being part of an adoption one time where we looked at all these other bells and whistles and said, we're sold on this one. And then it was, oh, by the way, you're actually not getting all that. You're just getting this.
Yeah.
What?
We actually discussed prior to putting the materials out, if it was something that we wouldn't be able to purchase, we wouldn't be putting it out. And then even the decision, would we even want to adopt these materials if we couldn't get this, and this?
Right.
So those were decisions that were made prior to putting them out as well.
Significant improvement in process.
Yeah.
That's what,
Well, I'd just like to thank you and Dr. Faye, as well as your team. I know how hard you guys work, so I'm certainly most appreciative. I feel comfortable that you've done your legwork and you've done your research, and if the teachers are firm supporters, I also concur with, Mrs. Luke's observations. So at this point, I'm sorry. Can you not hear me? Okay. I was just saying that, based on past experience, I believe in the legwork that's done ahead of time, and once teachers have an opportunity to check on it and to vote, I think that certainly, as Mrs. Cockcroft said, no product is gonna be perfect. You're always gonna have to stay on top of it and sometimes make changes. But again, you know, you do have your instructional leadership at the school, and we have our wonderful instructional leadership at the district level. And I would think that working together, we should be able to figure out how to get past those things that are difficult. So, thank you.
no, I agree wholeheartedly. I'm excited about it. The opportunity to engage kids in authentic text and have some materials that support that work in the writing component. So I was going to say something else, and I totally forgot because I was thoroughly listening to Mrs. Cunningham. I don't even remember what it was. Just the process is great. I think you guys have it down to an art. So, but there was something else, but it wasn't important. So, okay.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we'll dispense with board member comments, superintendent comments, attorney comments until our 6 o'clock in 10 minutes. So, meeting adjourned.